Hi, everyone. I'm here with Rania Saleh, the founder of Oryx Cloud Dental Software. All of you guys know how big of a fan I am of cloud practice management softwares for dentists, mainly for security. And Oryx is one of the ones that I encourage everyone to demo before you make a decision on switch. Rania, take a minute to introduce yourself. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. Tell me a little about yourself and how did you come up with Oryx?
So, Bob, thank you so much for having me. I came up with Oryx out of necessity. I told you the story before. I was a general dentist. I had my startup practice, and it grew very, very quickly. I was very proud of it. I was doing really well. We grew into multiple locations, and I got pregnant. I had to be on bed rest, and we started losing a lot of money. And I started looking everywhere. Are we getting less patients? Is the front desk not doing their job? Are we not following up on treatment? And I realized that the biggest issue we were having was not having a standardized exam, a standardized diagnosis, basically a standardized experience for the patient. And it started as a clinical software where I'm like, okay, I need all my associates to be examining, diagnosing the same way I'm doing, and to come up to the same treatment plan if we can. But then it grew into a full-on clinical and practice management software.
Amazing, amazing. And, one of the stories I tell people when they ask me about Oryx, and I tell them, look, I had no plans of liking your software. I remember the first time.
I remember you were very aggressive on that phone call.
When we first talked, all my sponsors kind of always make fun of me because I always assume the worst because I want to make sure only the best come into my group, And as courtesy, because you and I met in another Facebook group, Dental Nachos, I think it was. And as courtesy, I said, sure, I'll do a demo. And you were pretty persistent too, because I think I kind of made you mad. And
yeah.
And at the end of the hour that you demoed the product for me, and I was like, wow, I was very impressed. I was very impressed how far you guys had come in a in the software world in a short period of time. So I did a little research and I realized that a lot of your fundamentals of your software is intertwined with Dr. Kois's teachings. Am I correct?
Yes. So the reason I think my practice grew very quickly and did really well, and I opened in 2010, it was like the financial crisis. I opened a fee-for-service practice. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I think because of John's teaching, I was able to give that level of experience. And I was able to do it in a very efficient way. So when I started showing my associates how I'm doing things, the reasoning behind it, how I explain it to patients, I realized it was all John's material. So I reached out to him and I said, I started like a mini software for my practice that I'd like to show you. And he was like, and I said, I'll come to Seattle to show it to you, because at that point I was really happy with the results where you plug the information, it spits out the diagnosis for you. He said, don't fly, because he was just like you. People pitch stuff to him every day, and he's like, I'm not gonna like it. I don't want her to fly, and now I'm gonna be obliged to listen to her and all of this. So he was like, let's do a go-to meeting. I don't know what the meeting platform was back then. And at the end of it, he's like, I love it. How do we go forward?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't think you would say yes so quickly. I didn't plan for the next step. So I'm like, give me 2 days and I'll come back to you with a plan. And this is how we started partnering. And John was extremely generous to give a lot of his basically all his information is embedded into the software. There's a lot of these information icon, you click on it and you have all the literature that supports any of the diagnosis, on the treatment protocols from the COIS Center are embedded in the software. So you're doing a procedure you don't do on a regular basis, you click on the information icon and it's the latest protocol for doing it. You choose if you want to do it that way or not.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Everybody knows when I talk to people, they're like, oh, so which one is your favorite software? I'm like, look, I don't have a favorite. Not one software is not good for every practice. You know, if you're in a high speed type of practice and you're seeing 80 patients a day, and you know, Oryx may not be for you. I don't know what software would be good for you, but it's a very personalized decision people need to make. That's why I say demo the products, do your research. You want to do this switch only once. You know, you don't want to keep going from software to software. And when I saw your demo, I actually felt guilty. Oh boy, I'm not doing all of this steps for my patients for the exams. Maybe I should incorporate some of this in there. And I have gotten better in trying to do more. If I can get a spot in Dr. Kois's lecture, since it's sold out for 2 years. But I always envy those who basically incorporate software into their education. And this is the game changer as far as I'm concerned. Do you have a capability of showing that exam part a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I could show you a bit of that. And I want to stress on what you said. So like even with the COIS Center, there's a 2-year wait list. But even if you go there, John would say that when it was paper form, a lot of people were not implementing what he was teaching. And, you know, you go to a lecture, and when you go to John's lecture, you're really wowed. I had done Pankey, Spear. I had done everything before going to COIS. And I didn't think I would like it as much as I did. But still, like you would go, you're amazed, you come back to your practice, you're so busy that you might implement one form, but it's really hard to implement all of it. And we gather so much data. How do you show all this data to your patients? And how do you give them that consistent experience? And this was the idea behind Oryx in a way.
Yeah, automating his systems, correct?
Yes, and automating the patient experience where you're giving this amazing exam, which I was doing, but it was taking me forever. And when I opened my practice, it was fine for me to create a personalized risk assessment that I would give to the patient at the end of the visit, but it would take me about half an hour to create it. I had only like 2-3 patients a day, so it was okay to spend that. And that's what allowed me to grow my practice. So what we did is we automated this, where you're spending less than 7 to 10 minutes on the exam, and you're giving the patient that report.
Gotcha.
So we start the experience with the patients, booking their appointments online. They complete the forms. The forms are very visually engaging. So these are the forms that the patients are completing. It's not a yes, no answer. And we had a lower completion rate when it was less yes, no answer. So we're like, how do we make it more engaging for the patient? So patients were surveyed after completing these forms. They said that they thought the office was more technologically advanced and they trusted the dentist more. And that's even before coming to the practice. So you're starting with your patients on the right foot. And it gives them a score. For the dentist, they're getting the findings and they're getting an interpretation of the findings. And this literature is updated every year. Now, this is a simple example, what could affect bleeding gums. But sometimes you have a disease that you rarely see, and you don't want to go look it up. It's right there for you. So you know how this disease could affect the patient's oral health. And I would usually read it before the patient gets in, and I would tell them all of this, and they're like, oh my God, you know so much. And I look super smart. But
so this is that once they fill that out, the software kind of like puts this in front of you so you can see what the causes are. And you're telling me that this is constantly updated through the COIS material, right?
Exactly. So the software is giving you the risk for the patient. Before you even walk in the room, you know that this is a patient that is high risk for their jaw joint. And you know, this is an exam. If the patient is in hygiene, it's going to take me a few extra minutes. And we trained our team to look at the risk and triage the patients. So they know if someone completed their forms ahead of time, and this is a high-risk dentofacial, they have a lot of cosmetic issues. Let's add more time because we're taking more photos, we're spending more time with that patient. If a patient is green everywhere, let's put them in the hygiene chair because it's going to be, hi, how are you doing? Great, I'll see you in 6 months. So it's a great way of triaging the patient.
Wow.
And then what we had issues with is data collection. I couldn't get my assistants to get the DSLR camera, take a full set on every patient. So we created an app that allows you to take photos very quickly. And these photos would populate the exam, and later on, they would populate also the patient's risk assessment. These are the photos that are embedded in the software if you click on the information icon. So you're doing the airway exam. You just started doing airway in your practice. You don't have on the literature. So you're looking at this. Does my patient look more like the one on the right or the one on the left? And then you can read a bit more about this. But then when you have a few airway exams under your belt, you don't have to click the information icon. So there's a lot of tools to help you as you're starting with a new exam. You hire a new associate that does not have experience maybe with TMJ. They have on these information icon, on these articles, on these photos to help them at the beginning. But then when you don't need it, it's not in your face all the time.
Wow.
What's in your face all the time is these little dental history, medical history nudges. And I really like them because if the patient says, I pack food between my teeth in their history questionnaire, and you're doing the existing restoration and you hit that there is a crack or there is a fracture in the filling, it's going to light up red for you, and your assistant could show you this on the screen so you're reminded and you're creating that report with the patient. So you're saying, I know you said that you pack food on the upper right side, and I see a fracture in your existing filling. And that's why most probably you're packing food. Or if someone says, I have a click in my joint and you don't see it on the spot, you have this dental history and you're going to say, I know you mentioned this, but I can't see it. Can you tell me more about it?
These are the information that the patient has filled out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent. Excellent.
And that's what's really unique because like other software or a lot of software would say, we have dental history questions that the patients would fill online. But how valuable is it? Am I seeing it at the beginning of the appointment and I checked something in between and I completely forgot what was in it? Or are all the pieces connected together and talking together where it's giving me the information when I need it? And I think this is what's unique is the information is there where you need it, depending on what exam you're doing. And the exam is extremely systematic. It's going to take you a bit longer at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, it goes really quickly because it expands and collapses as needed. If you say the patient doesn't have issues in this area, it's going to skip it. So it looks a bit longer or thorough, but it actually saves time. If I'm looking at restorations, it's going to ask me how large is this restoration? Looking at the intercuspal distance, again, you have the literature to explain to you how to look at it at first. And you're going small, medium, large. And it's going to assign a structural compromise risk for that too. And it's going to give it a high risk, moderate risk, or a low risk. And that would go in turn to explain this to the patient. So now I'm not telling the patient that I'm going to put a crown or an onlay on this tooth because it's high risk or because I feel like it. And they're like, oh, but my other dentist said I should get a filling. It's going to explain to the patient that this is a structurally compromised tooth. There's a higher risk of fracture if we don't do anything about it. And that's why we recommend a crown versus a filling. And if the insurance company wants more information, you click on that information icon and you're sending them on their literature if they deny that crown or that onlay. So I don't have Mary going to the back and asking me what's the narrative for this one. It's structural compromise that's on the literature embedded right here. And now you do this exam, and I bet you that you do an extremely thorough exam. And I bet that most of the people listening to the podcast do a very, very thorough exam. But the patient has no idea. All they know is you came in the room, you looked for 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 12 minutes, and you left. And now they go to the front and they have the treatment plan, or the treatment coordinator comes to speak to them. Or you tell them very briefly that we have these issues. But they don't have anything tangible. Sometimes they're not even listening to you when they're in the room. What we try to do is the patient leaves the office with this report. So now the photos that took 2 minutes to take are all right here. If you scan the patient, the scans are in here. And the patient is walking out with this personalized report. So it's telling them about their gums, their teeth health, their bite and jaw joint, and their smile. And I find this report super valuable because some patients that say no, go home, think about it, read a bit more. And they're like, okay, now I get why you want to do these crowns. Or you said that my teeth are misaligned. It didn't really bother me, but now thinking about it, it really bothers me. And what are the solutions? And then you can say, okay, we can do aligners for 9 months, and we're going to align these lower teeth, and it's going to look great. The other thing is, a lot of offices say this is their biggest source of referral. Patients take this, they go show it to their coworkers, they go show it to their family members, and people call the offices and they say, I want the exam that gives me the wheel. In the early days, I only gave this exam to patients that had issues. I didn't want to print it to everyone and do that folder, like I was being a bit cheap on that. And I'm like, these are the patients that want to go and think about it. And we realized later on that actually one of the dentists at the Koi Center told me, oh, I give this to everyone, and you're going to see the ones that refer you the most are the ones with the green everywhere. They're so happy that they're healthy. And I'm like, you're right. We don't celebrate health. Like, we're always talking about disease, and we're not celebrating that they're healthy. And he's like, these are the ones that are putting this on Instagram in front of your office and saying, I just visited my dentist and I'm looking great. So it becomes a really good source of marketing for the practices.
That's excellent.
Yes, so that's really the patient experience. And a lot of our users have this on their website. So when someone is going on your website and do I choose Bob or do I choose someone across the street? And they see on your website that you're going to have a different patient experience. You're going to have these reports that are personalized. We're going to examine you in these 4 different areas. Even if the one across the street is doing the same, but they have the cookie cutter website where it's saying, okay, we do implants, we do sedation, we do this, we do that. It doesn't talk to the patient about the experience they're going to have. And then there's a lot of educational material that you give the patient on the home care. Hygienists love this, is there. We're going to recommend for them, let's say, a toothpaste, and we're going to tell them, like, the RDA, your toothpaste currently is moderately abrasive. Because you have erosion, we want you to use one that is less abrasive. So again, nothing salesy, we're just informing them about their condition.
And those are customizable, right? You can
right,
different recommendations. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, so we have the abrasiveness indexed for most toothpaste on the market, and once you choose it, it just populates. So we engage the patient, we review all the information with them, we have the report to explain it to the patient. And when you said, like, if an office is seeing 80 patients, can they use Oryx? Yes, because it's saving a lot. Like, you're just investing in that 7-minute exam. You finish it, you hit generate notes. All your notes are automatically generated. So you're not spending extra time to write notes, to sign notes. At the end of the day, it's going to show you all of this. You can go, it all looks good, sign it at once, you're done. If you have a treatment, you go select all. I did shade A2, generate, I'm done. These are the protocols that I told you could look at. Like, it's not a procedure I do on a regular basis. I'm going to pull up the protocol. I'm going to see how it's done. And again, we change these every year with the latest literature. And then you go to the treatment plan and you have your codes that you put together. So if I'm doing, let's say, endo, build-up, and crown, it automatically divides it into the phases and visits. If I decided how long my visits are, how long my, what I do in each phase, and I love it in implant cases. You're doing an all-on-4 case, it's one click. And it's dividing it into the visits, the length of the visit. So when the patient goes to the front, it becomes just a drag and drop for each visit. And this is the connection, again, that I speak about between everyone on the team. So now at the front, they know that the next visit is a root canal. It's 90 minutes. They know who the doctor is. I have my block schedule. They would just drag it into that spot. There's also the pre-appointment checklist, check-in and check-out checklist. So that creates more standardization in the practice. So if my checkout protocol is to collect the payment, schedule the next visit, send it to the insurance company, the attachments would automatically happen in our software. So you do all of this at once. And once it's done, the appointment turns, this card turns dark gray. So I know that whatever needed to be done for that patient was done on that day. And that creates more accountability in the practice. I look at the schedule. If on the schedule is dark gray, I know I'm done. I know we had a good day. If there's a light gray, the next day they come and they're like, okay, the patient left and did not schedule their next appointment, so we still have to call them, we still have to text them. So it makes things easier, and it allows you to track everything that you're doing. So if the patient said, let me think about it, it puts them in the follow-up category, and you have these sequences to follow up with these patients. It's going to tell you who's accepting treatment, who accepted and scheduled, who's already in treatment. Like these patients I don't have to worry about because I placed an implant and we're waiting for 3 months. But these I have to worry about. If you have rejections, what's the reason people are rejecting treatment? Like if you start hearing a lot about pricing, then you might think I need to offer more solutions for financing maybe. Yeah, and you create a treatment plan. It has all the financial options that you have. You can do payment plans automatically in Oryx, and it goes and takes the money directly from the account. It also generates all the consent form for the patients. So you don't have to worry to look that I'm doing an extraction for the wisdom teeth, whereas the consent form for that, it's already there. It has the teeth number attached.
And these consent forms are developed by Oryx?
These consent forms are developed by Oryx. So Oryx comes, I call it the dental office in a box. All the material is already there. And it's up to you to choose to use it or not. So you might say, I like the extraction consent form, but the endo consent form is not what my state likes best. I need to add this paragraph. You might add it, or you might say, you know, it doesn't fit the style of my practice. I want to change it completely. So the notes from school note to court note, all of it is embedded in the software, on the consent forms, campaigns, and you can choose to customize any of it. Even the exam.
Yeah, that was my next question. So you can customize what you already have.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Very important.
Even the progress notes, they're all embedded. But let's say in your practice, you only use 3 shades and we have 5 shades. You can remove that. Or if you do your protocol completely differently, then you can change the full protocol.
Wait a second. You just said something that I spent a lot of time doing. You have my clinic notes. Like if I'm doing an MO composite, you already have something there and I can customize it. That saves a lot of time. I mean, I basically spent probably 3 weekends trying to get all my templates in there.
Yeah.
And it's good to have something. Obviously, everybody use different material and things like that, but you can customize it. That's very important and something I just learned today about Oryx.
You can customize it and you can track it. So like the material that you use, we're tracking that. And what's unique about Oryx is it's evolving all the time, but everything is done with the mindset that we're going to use it eventually. So like we track material and we want to look at utilization in your office if there's material wasted. So we start with the software in a way that could track it. And when we build that feature, you don't start using it today. We plug all your information for the past 3 or 5 years in it because we've been collecting that data. So every time we create a feature, it already has a lot of the information to populate it.
Wow. Very impressive. Very impressive. Hey, I was wondering if you could maybe discuss the AI, the new AI thing that you guys have incorporated, right?
Yeah. So we started a partnership with Pearl AI to have AI on our images, and it's going to be a native integration. And I know you're a big fan of native integrations, and I completely agree on that front, because if the dentists have to go to a different software to look for at these images, they might do it at the beginning when they're excited about the future, but eventually it drops and it has to be part of the workflow.
It has to be seamless. It's like buying a car with a lot of toys in it, and after 3 months you don't even remember what toys the car had, you know. So yes, that's great that you guys are working. And is that introduced yet, or is that coming soon?
So we're launching this at the COIS annual symposium.
And when is that?
July.
Excellent. And Rania, I wanted to talk about this because I think a lot of people, I need to coin this term, they have subscription fatigue. And as soon as you say, oh, you have to pay this much per month to use this, and there are subscriptions that save you money. There are subscriptions that you always hate to pay. I believe going with a cloud software actually can save people money, because people don't realize that, yeah, you're only paying $200 for support of your on-premise server-based software, but you don't realize that you're paying this much for claims, you pay this much for security or backup of your you still have to pay for security, but you pay so much for backup of your data. You pay so much for communication with patients, online forms. And when you add everything up, I think you actually save a lot of money. You said you had a slide that you could show, right?
Yeah, let me find it for a second. So what we found is you save about actually, if you get all the features that you typically get with Oryx, you're paying $1,500 to $2,500.
Right.
And you're right, you cannot use a software without all the add-ons, an on-premise software.
Right.
And what we're finding is there's a lot more overlap with the companies right now. So the security, like you said, you still need, but you're saving on backup, on the burden of changing your server, updating a lot more equipment.
Server management is very costly, you know,
especially if you do it properly.
You have to do it. I know a lot of offices that don't, but yeah, you have to do that. And with cloud software, you know, I have no servers. You know, each one of my computers are a different node. I'm testing something new with a Chromebox. These cheap computers that can actually work anywhere. You know, so yeah. It's very important for people to understand that, yes, if you want to still live in the 70s, have a hand written ledger and just use a software for different things, sure, you don't need any of this, but patients expect a reminder text. Patients expect to be able to pay online or things like that, and you pay for those with a lot of software. With cloud software, you basically you pay one thing and then everything is added in there, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you're absolutely right about the patient expectation. You can't go to a hair salon or to a massage spa and get better service and better tools than you're getting at your dental office. Some medical offices are still very behind, but everyone is catching up. I mean, the trend is cloud. Every industry is in the cloud. So when someone tells me they have a startup and they're considering on-prem, I cringe. I'm like, how are you? Like, I understand someone who's been there for 20 years or 50 years or whatever, and about to retire, and they don't want to change now. Right. But someone starting out with on-prem, I don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah, when Rania says on-prem, she means on-premise server, which means your server for your data, which is the most important thing you have, is in your office. You're responsible for protection. You're responsible for data backup. And, you know, you need to make sure that that server stays there in case of any unfortunate accidents, and you can protect it. But yeah, I see these startup threads all over the internet, Facebook, Dental Town, and people are like, how much should I pay for a server? And someone's saying, oh, probably about $8,000. And you know, we know both of us know Anthony. We always laugh at these things, like it's crazy that how much people are paying.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they just do it themselves and they don't do the proper backups. And then when there is an issue, they find, or they use like a non-reputable company to do their backups, and it's not there when they need it. And we hear these horror stories because these are people that learned the hard way to move to cloud, and they come to us and they're like, I lost 10 years worth of data.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's never fun.
Yeah. So I wanted to thank you, Rania, to be with us for a little bit today and explaining this. Hopefully we can have more of these discussions when you guys introduce new features. Do you have anything? I know you guys have actually a special for our group, so people can contact me and I will send them to you guys. Do you have anything to add at the end? I'd really appreciate your being here today.
No, I mean, thank you for having me. I love your group. I think it adds so much value to the dental community. You're giving people a lot of information that they wouldn't know otherwise. And I love how you're impartial about different software. I know someone is coming from your group and they say, I'm doing my homework, I'm demoing everyone. And I'm like, okay, you can do it, but you'll end up with us.
And that's what you have to do. I tell people, look, you got to pick what's best for your practice. And you can only do it with information. Once again, thank you very much for being with us, and hopefully we can see you later.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.